Hi, I'm Peter Knegt, and I'm here with Tegan and Sara, who are at the Toronto International Film Festival, where their new show, High School, is having its world premiere. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my God, it's so exciting to be here.
So yeah, High School.
Yeah.
This is really exciting.
Yeah.
This is your first time, at a film festival promoting something that you created.
Kind of. We went to Sundance a few years ago with Clea Duvall.
Okay.
Because
Wait, we should give more.
well, this is
context
where I
to that.
was. You went to interrupt me, so I mean, like, this is rough.
You said Clea Duvall, like we'd already talked.
No,
about
I was
Clea
about to
Duvall.
say it. It's a comma.
Okay.
That pause was a comma. We actually went to Sundance with Clea Duvall, who is our co-creator on High School, a few years ago because she directed an amazing movie called Intervention, which she wrote, and Sarah did the score for it.
Oh.
So that was actually our introduction to film festivals.
It's true.
But this is an entirely different experience because we are here this time with our own show based on our memoir. So it's like, we were like a very excited for Sundance, and this is like an ecstatic anticipation to have our show premiere.
Actually, there was a little bit less pressure though at Sundance.
Yes.
Because of the clothing thing, because at Sundance everyone just wears like really warm
puffy
jackets
jacket.
and boots, and they're just like, stay warm, don't die.
But
And
we're leaning into it.
Yeah,
we're leaning
we're-
into the humidity here. We're very excited to be
Yeah.
here.
What's it like seeing your youth portrayed on screen? Like, that must just be kind of wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just to be, clear, I think if it was just we had never done the memoir and suddenly we had a TV show, it would have been absolutely shocking. But we had written the memoir, so we had done a lot of, time with the archival materials. We'd spent time at our high school, it wasn't totally fresh where we walked onto set and we're like, oh my God, Crescent Heights, so we were pretty prepared for I think the emotional journey of it. The things that shocked me about making the TV show that had nothing to do with writing the story or anything like that was just how moving it was to see twins on camera. Our story is so specific in our minds, I haven't known a lot of other twins. I've never been friends with other identical twins. I've talked about my experience and we've shared our experience through our memoir, but I've never visually seen it. And the first time that the stars of the TV show, Susan and Rayleigh, were on camera together, I think the word would be wept. I wept. I didn't just cry. I felt this incredible, moving feeling of seeing us represented, us being twins, queer twins. And it was just wonderful. I absolutely was shocked by that feeling.
Yeah, two things that I kind of brought up when I was coming up with these questions. First, in a second, we'll get to those incredible performers who play the two of you.
Yeah.
But I was trying to look back to see if about twin representation on television.
It's not great.
No, it's Sister was the only one that I could really find, and
Yeah.
that is a far cry from your show.
I mean, but I guess apparently with Beverly Hills 90210, the leads were fraternal twins. Obviously, they were a boy and girl.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was twins on Degrassi, identical twins on Degrassi Junior High, the original Degrassi Junior High and High. But they've the central focus, the central characters of something, and not being done in a weird, goofy way. There's nothing. It's always something that makes us actually feel kind of shame about being twins in a lot of ways. Nothing against the ones you mentioned or I mentioned, but a lot of times when twins are portrayed, it's kind of like twins. We don't read each other's minds. That's so stupid. We don't dress the same. It does seem like we're dressed the same, but we don't normally do that.
Yeah, but those examples, it's a sitcom and a soap opera. This show
true.
is not either of those things. It's
Yeah.
much more based in reality, and it much more sort of portrays something honestly and naturalistically, and very well. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But Rayleigh and Susan, can you talk a little bit about how you found them? I believe that there was an interesting story behind this.
Yeah, I was just scrolling on TikTok, and they came up. Rayleigh's account came up, and she was doing a tour of her car. So kids, younger folks do on their TikTok account, they'll be like, hi, I'm in my car. Hey guys, here's my lunch, whatever it was. And it was just mesmerizing, which I don't know exactly why that
Tegan's
is.
not a great actor, so she didn't really portray it the
Yeah.
same way.
I found
that
it really
Rayleigh did.
mesmerizing. I found her just super charismatic and sweet, and it was just so, it's just sweet. I don't know if there's a better word for it, but it reminded, as I started to scroll through her content, it really reminded me of stuff that I had seen a few years ago when I was viewing old VHS footage of us in high school, and I always had a camera and I was always filming myself, and I was always interviewing people, and as I was sort of looking at the parallels, I had this moment where I was like, these identical twins should play us on our show. And I sent it to Sarah. And so, you know, it was a journey to get to the point where they auditioned. But the very short version is that, you know, we put up a TikTok asking people to help us get them to follow us so we could DM them. And then they did. And an hour later, we were in touch with them and we suggested they audition for the show. And they did a tape and everybody liked it, but they were like, let's bring them to LA and do another audition. And, you know, by the end of it all, like, we had known from the second we saw them, but, you know, it took a little cajoling of the team. But it's undeniable when you get around them, and I think they did a marvelous job in the show. And there's something about their raw energy, and like you can feel them finding themselves over the course of the show. And certainly that's what I witnessed on set. You know, their confidence grew, their performances grew. Like, you know, when they started to play music halfway through the season, their performances changed, and it's like watching people really figure it out. And I think that we're so lucky that we found non-actors to do that, because I mean, I'm sure some actors could have pulled it off, but they just did such an excellent job.
No, there's something naturalistic about non-actors sometimes when you find the right ones. But they'd never acted before or played music before.
They'd never done anything. When we met them or when we reached out, they were working at a pizza place in Fresno. And when we actually called them, like, you know, the whole process took maybe a couple months. When we called them to tell them they got the gig, we were all on Zoom, and they were in shock. They didn't even seem that excited. And then maybe an hour later, Sarah and I arranged a FaceTime with them, and their parents came on, and their parents were shocked. And I have a screenshot of it. It's really funny. I'm going to post it on social media this week. But it's like their parents were like looking at us in the photo, and it's because like we came on FaceTime, and they were like, "Is this real? Like, are you guys for real? Like, they're doing a show now about you guys. That, like, our kids are going to play you." And we were like, "This is totally legit." Yes.
You know, in some ways, there's a strange serendipitous thing about we kind of were discovered in a very unusual way. You know, we didn't have, you know, social media. We didn't have like a stage mom who like took us to like, you know, I don't know, audition for something. Like, we just happened to enter this like dumb Garage Wars competition in high school, and we won it, and sort of overnight our lives really changed. I mean,
well, it was other adults telling our parents, yeah, no, they're actually good. And there was something about the process of Season and Rayleigh and discovering them. It was like we were telling their parents, as like all the adults surrounding them were like, no, there's something special about your kids. Yeah. And now we want them to move to LA and take acting lessons, and in 6 months they're going to be going to TIFF. Like, you know, like it was just like we were like, trust us.
Yeah.
And your parents are, you know, sizable characters in the show. Do you want to talk a little about having control over the representation of your own parents and like what your parents think of this? I mean, yeah, it must have been really interesting to do that.
They actually don't know there's a show coming out, so please don't tell them.
Don't really tell them. Well, you know, it's interesting because when we were writing the memoir, for us, the focus was really like on our story, and we didn't really get into the lives of our parents or our friends. I mean, they're characters in the book. I mean, they're there, but we didn't fill them out. And so when we started, you know, developing the show with Clea, she was really honest right from the very beginning that she was going to take some liberties. She was like, you know, we're going to have to fictionalize some stuff, and we're going to have to sort of like expand these characters. And in some cases, she was like, there's just too many people, so we're going to have to sort of like, you know, we're going to create some characters or, you know, borrow some storylines from here or there. And I think in the beginning we were like, no, it's got to be like our exact story. And you know, I think we sort of like got on the page and learned to trust her in that process. But I won't deny that probably the hardest characters for me to let go of the real, like the true story is our parents. And I think that's just because we feel like, you know, it's one thing to say, oh, my best friend is kind of a version or a fictionalized version of my best friend. But like, our mom's our mom, you know, like you can't be like, you know, it was really important to us that some of the key stuff that was a part of our parents' lives was kept in those characters, but then also some of the stuff that happened in our lives wasn't included in those characters. So it's a dance, you know, like the negotiation of that is really complicated. But specifically for our mom, you know, having her be this really fierce, independent, confident woman who was, you know, was in school, going back to school, getting another degree when we were in high school. I mean, she was such a hero and such an inspiration to us, but she was also this, like, she's not a villain, that's not the right way to say it, but she was certainly the gatekeeper in our lives who we were, like, most afraid of, most nervous with. And finding out that we were gay or not, you know, doing what she wanted us to do. And I just feel like Kobe Smulders is this, like, formidable presence on the show. And of course, we're, like, really anxious for our mom to see it, and we hope it, like, pays the proper homage homage to her and what she was to us in high school.
I mean, I don't know your mom, but the second episode, which half of it takes place from her perspective, it felt like a really beautiful tribute to me, and Colby is incredible in it. So I mean, what more can your mom ask?
I mean, when we announced officially that Colby was going to play our mom on the show, our mom texted and said she was really happy about it. So I mean, Sarah gave a more nuanced or you know, a bigger answer, but like I think ultimately our parents were really happy with the actors who were cast to play them. They haven't seen the show though, so I think it's going to be hard regardless. I think Clea and Laura, Laura Kittrell was the other writer on the show. I think they did their best to protect and to listen to us. You know, we've definitely had a lot of conversations about the parents in the scripts, and they were very patient and understanding, and we didn't always get our way. You know, like that's an interesting part of not being the writer on the show. Is like we are executive producers and it is based on our book, and everyone was so wonderful to like really hear us out about stuff, but ultimately it was really up to them what they had the parents do and say, and that was the hardest part for me, because
no matter how old you are, you don't want your mom to be mad at you.
I don't, you know, and I wanted them to be also like portrayed as they were, and that's pretty hard to do on television, so it'll be really interesting. But I think when we went out and sold the show, we used My So-Called Life as an example of something that we loved. And why we loved that show is because they gave so much respect to the parents. Like, it wasn't just a show about teenagers. It was a show that also gave depth and didn't patronize the older people on the show. And that was our hope with high school, was that you could watch it no matter how old you were, and you could have respect for the characters. We don't patronize the young people on the show, and we don't patronize the old people on the show. Older people on the show. Oh my
God, Kobe is going to hear that. By the way, Kobe is younger than me and Tegan.
She is, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. But yeah,
we're like old.
We're like elves.
Yeah.
So, in addition to being sort of a pioneering representation of twins and queer twins, it's also a pioneering representation of Calgary.
Yeah, totally.
It has to be the first show ever set in suburban Calgary, I would imagine.
A lot of the people that worked on the show were very proud Albertans, whether they were from Calgary or they were from, you know, Edmonton or neighboring areas.
It was a big deal. Like the crew
were
excited.
They were excited. They were like, look, we're proud of the film industry in Alberta, but this is the first time that Calgary gets to play itself. Usually we're trying to, you know, make it look like this city or this city, and they were just everyone was so enthusiastic about making sure that Calgary looked like itself. And a lot of the people who worked on the show were roughly our age, and so there was also this like real like camaraderie around like, oh my God, do you remember this band, or do you remember that club, or do you remember, you know, whatever, like that place where we get bootlegs.
Like some people actually like remembered us, which I was like, sorry.
We went to high school. There was people in the crew who were like, oh, I was friends with Bree, you know, we were at your grad or whatever. And there
was a rumor, I was just going to say there was a rumor like a couple months after the show got greenlit that it was going to get made in in Toronto. And we got like multiple requests from Calgary news media being like, can Tegan and Sara confirm that the show is not happening in Calgary because people are going to be really pissed off. And we were like, oh my God, who started this rumor? Probably someone from Toronto. But we were like, no, of course it's going to be set in Calgary. Like, it has to be set in Calgary.
And it's set in like legitimate places. Like we shot most of the stuff that happens inside of the high school happens in Crescent Heights, like our actual high school. And then they did build some sets to get some of the later stuff that happens.
I mean, adolescence in the 90s in a place like Calgary is all about suburban sprawl and like isolation and like, you know, I think Clea really understood that. That was such a big part of her pitch, you know, was like, I want to, it's interesting because she was like, I want it to be so cinematic and beautiful and just show how big and like isolated. And she talked about it in this beautiful way. I mean, she'd read our book, so she had descriptions and the internet, but she'd like never even been there. And then it was funny because the challenge, of course, being that you can't really capture all of that because the city has changed. It's like, you know, modernized and it's different. So, but I think that, you know, especially as you get into later episodes, there's some beautiful, like drone, like it's just some beautiful, beautiful shots of Calgary. And I think it's really exciting that it gets to be the like star of the show in a way.
Absolutely.
My sister lives there. She's very, very excited for
really?
this representation. Yeah, I feel like they're starved for representation there.
We were like gay Mr. Rogers like duo when we were in Calgary. Like people who were, like would walk by us and be like, hi Tegan and Sara, we're so glad you're shooting here. And like everyone thought we were on the show. Like there are people in my life who I still don't truly think understand that it's not a documentary and it is not us pretending to be like it's. I think there are people in my life who don't understand that it's fiction, including someone who's related to us, and I love it. I can't wait for people to watch it and be like, what the hell is going on? Where are Tegan and Sara?
So this comes out in October. October is a huge month for the two of you. New album, the TV show. You're going on tour for the first time in 4 years.
Yeah, like 3.5 years. So.
Yeah, how does that feel after, like, I'm assuming a bit of a pandemic?
Yeah,
It's very exciting.
Yeah. I mean, we're really excited and anxious to get back into the world, like most people are. We're a little out of shape, you know, from touring and traveling and promoting things. I think, like a lot of people during the pandemic, there were certainly awful things, but there was also a lot more time and rest in our lives. And right as we're getting back into like promoting all of these projects, there's just this kind of whirlwind feeling again of like, wow, the world is just moving so fast. Things are moving so fast. So I think we're kind of getting, you know, used to that equilibrium again. And I feel nothing but gratitude for the time that we had during the pandemic, though, to create and to make things and to see it all sort of come out of the world, or come out of that weird time in the world. You know, we're humbled by it.
I think also like so much of what we do is music, and we've spent so much time and energy, like really poured ourselves into the book and really put a lot of energy onto the show, or into the show. We also wrote a couple graphic novels for younger kids, and there's so many other things that we've been focused on. To just go in and make a record. And then like a couple nights ago, we were on Seth Meyers, and like I cried afterwards, like, you know, to multiple people, including in an interview the next day, because I was like, it was so cool to just be a band again. Like just to go back and do something that we've been doing since we were 15 years old, and just to stand on stage and play an instrument and sing a song that's so meaningful, and like to have the audience connect. And like, it's just also, it's very intense to put out so many things at once. And I'm also very grateful for that experience. But there is something about putting out a new record. We haven't put out a record of new music since 2016. We put a lot of time and energy into Crybaby. It's a really beautiful record. It's a really different record than we've made ever. And, you know, Sara was so influential in terms of the production. It was, you know, a few of the songs on the album that she wrote that influenced the whole rest of the record. And it's a really collaborative record for us.
That's Tegan's sneaky way of blaming me if the record
does
right. badly. She'll
I
be
know.
like, it was Sarah's, essentially Sara produced the record and has made all the choices. So.
I know, in all the interviews I'm like very careful to make sure that everyone understands that if you love the record, that was us, we collaborated together. That was a very manipulative sentence. I'm like, it was Sara's production, and it's a highly collaborative project. And when it bombs, I'm like, it was Sara's production, and I'm just in it because it's Tegan and Sara. And no, but I think it's a really special record, and it's just like amazing to be in a band. Music is, it's so cheesy to say, but it's just like such a universal connector. It just brings people together, and I just feel like really grateful we still get to play music too. Also, this, like, can we just talk about this for a second? Like, you threw this out right before we started, and you were like, oh, you can drink out of a mug with your faces. What, do you make these?
Billy Eichner drank out of the mug with your faces on it.
Did he ask about us?
No. He didn't actually inquire about the mug.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Just ignored all the other queeros?